Hi everybody, my name's Rebecca and welcome back to My Bookish Travels. Today I am going to be giving a short little discussion on I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Goo. First off, can we just say how adorably cute this cover is? And I love that we do have Asian represented on the front because our main character is Asian. The one thing that I absolutely hate is when you have a character on the cover representing the character in the book and it is a completely different ethnicity, and I just really enjoyed this. I have a feeling that this model is probably actually Korean. I could be mistaken on that, but I'm just really happy that they represented the ethnicity of the main character with the model they got to represent her on the cover. So I'm going to give a short little description, and then I am going to mention a few of the things that I really liked and some of the things that I didn't. And I'm going to try to keep this all under 5 minutes today. The story follows our main character, Desi, who is planning on going to school to become a doctor, similar to her mother, and she has never fallen in love, nor is love on her radar. She wants to graduate high school, and then she wants to go and get her degree at the university of her choice and just continue to go based on her plan for how she wants to live her life. Unfortunately, or fortunately, her plans change when a new student comes to her school and she falls head over heels, or should I say pant-droppingly, in love with this guy and decides that she is going to win him over one way or another. And her choice is to follow in her father's love of K-dramas and use that as a guidebook to make him fall in love with her. So some of the things I really liked with this is you definitely can tell that the author loves Korean dramas, which instantly warms my heart. And I love getting to see her in the writing place different K-dramas as well as discussing different characters in those dramas. And even with the character in the book she's creating, they're like, I'm going to be like this person off of this drama. Yes! And it just made me so happy getting to see that. I also love getting to see the character slowly climb down that wormhole into K-drama land and be fully immersed in it. Absolutely amazing. I love it so much. It's so exciting. And I'm the kind of person that if you say, I want to get into Asian dramas, I'm going to be like, here is the shovel. Here is the shovel. Just keep digging. You're going to find it. You're going to find the right one for you. Just keep watching, trust me. And then before you know it, you're going to be hooked on it and it's all good. And this is coming from someone who has been watching them for well over 10 years of her life. So there are some things though that I didn't actually like in this book, but before I get into those, I do want to mention some honorable mentions of my favorite characters. The first is obviously Desi's appa, and the second is her best friends. I really love the fact that you're getting to see these relationships. Now, yes, I will say that one of the negatives is it does kind of feel like they kind of drop off the face of the planet at one point in the story, but I really love how the author draws back her dad into the story. She also brings back obviously the friends and whatnot, but there are a few things that I found quite awkward with this that were a little bit uncomfortable to read, and I also felt like it just didn't do justice for somebody who is trying to bring K-drama to a story. So if you haven't read the book, I do recommend not proceeding with some of the things that I'm going to mention that I don't like because they could end up spoiling you. But on the flip side, if you are interested in just hearing my thoughts, feel free to stick around. So some of the things that I didn't like in this, number one, is the fact that her friends never once actually tell her, I am not going to help you do this. They tell her how much it's a bad idea. They really don't think she should do this. And they don't actually try to stop her. For example, with the car accident scene, I would definitely tell my friend, listen, I am not helping you to do something like this. It could affect insurance, and you also are running the risk that we are not actually in a fictional world. We are in reality. Now, yes, I understand I am reading fiction, but still, you have to have some sense of realism in here. Next thing that I didn't like was the cliche of him actually finding the paper with her steps on how to make him fall in love with her based on a K-drama. That seemed so cliche because there were so many other ways that they could do it. For example, he could have been like, you know what? I got thinking about it, and all of those situations that we ended up in were so strange. Like the situation with the boat, the situation when it came to the actual party, when it came to the car accident, and have her be like, oh, yeah, that was kind of strange, right? And he could have been like, you didn't like plan that, right? And then that awkward silence. And then all of a sudden, light bulb. They both realize what's going on and that they're not going to get out of this in a pretty way. I feel like that would have been a better way than him actually finding the paper. It just felt very cliched and it felt very North Americanized than something that would have happened in a K drama. I feel like the scenario I just gave was totally what would have happened in a K drama. But that's just my personal preference with that. Um, Another thing that I didn't like was her doing a Jandy moment in the pool. She already knew he couldn't swim, so making a decision like that just seemed so selfish and so dangerous and really stupid actually, because here she is where he's possibly going to change his mind and she doesn't fully know it. She's tried to do a couple of other things, but she decides, no, I'm going to go right back and do this exact same thing that made him mad previously, and I'm going to do it all over again. Run the risk of his life, and then having everybody else be like, she's a lifeguard. She knows how to swim, and just put everything over the top in that scenario. Just so frustrating seeing a character repeating bad behavior and not actually learning from it is a big no-no for me. So, can we just talk about the fact that she asked a girl who actually liked this guy to take him to the prom so that she could try to get a second chance with him without even considering this girl's feelings at all? Little bit selfish there, just saying. And finally, the situation where she goes with him to the hospital to see his mom, she doesn't give two thoughts for something that has been her dream her entire life. Yeah, she does, but she doesn't, if you get my drift. She ends up not showing up. She doesn't call. It ends up being her dad calling, so she's not even taking responsibility for her decisions. And I obviously understand that a character like that would probably be willing to take responsibility for that if this is her dream, and it always has been. Also, she should have had time between him getting there and them leaving to make that call herself. And finally, where it kind of just cuts it for me is when she's on the phone with the actual school and she tells them, all of these things, and the person says, well, it's not really important for you to do that. It wouldn't really affect one way or another you getting in. Then she kind of starts acting like an immature child, which is never a good thing, and you probably wouldn't want to be showing a negative front to a school you're hoping to get into, and asks to speak to his supervisor. That's like a big turnoff for me because I'm actually the person in my workplace when somebody's on the phone and says, can I speak to your supervisor? It's actually me that they're asking to speak with. And yeah, it's awkward and it just makes it very uncomfortable. And it's usually a killer point for me when it comes to a book. And unfortunately, as cute as the ending is with her boyfriend, and her dad sitting there watching a K-drama and whatnot, and even though I can completely picture the scene of her boyfriend and her dad watching a K-drama and his socked foot poking at the back of her boyfriend's back, being like, are you doing that in front of her own father, her appa? As much as I can vision that in my head when I was reading it, it just felt like that ending was a little too, let's wrap it all up in a positive way. She got into another school. She was feeling great and excited and happy, and she's got a boyfriend, and her friends are going to school as well. And everything is all like neat and bow-like. And if anybody knows, when it comes to K-dramas, you don't always end up with that happy bow. And yes, although I understand that this was the direction the author went with, I feel like there were so many things that were skipped over without any growth that makes it really hard to justify this being an amazing book. And unfortunately for me, it was a flop. That's not to say that I wouldn't be willing to read something else by Maureen Gu. It just means that this book wasn't the right one for me. And unfortunately, that is a big fear that I have when reading anything that has connections to K-dramas in a book that is not a manga of sorts. More so because I don't know if it's going to be one that I am going to absolutely love or absolutely hate. And hopefully this book does get into the hands of somebody who absolutely loves it. It just wasn't the right one for me. Well, with that being said, those are my thoughts. If you guys would like to share yours, please feel free to do so in the comment section down below. I would love to hear. Do you agree? Do you have different opinions to me? Feel free to have a discussion. Be respectful, but I love to hear different thoughts. You know, if you liked it, if you hated it, let's discuss it and go from there. And I will see you guys in my next video. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you next time.